Okay, greetings family and welcome to another Grenfell MediaWatch update. I did want to call this one a matter of trust, but I think I'm going to call it Doublespeak. And I say that in light of knowing that it's 3 months since the massacre happened. And this week the government announced that it's going to actually remove its pay caps off the police and prison services. That worries me because that kind of tells me that something big's in store for all of us. But I want to move on to what's happened in those 3 months. Well, first of all, that we know is that we still are in the midst of an atrocious housing situation where one of the richest nations, the 5th richest nations on the planet, in one of the richest boroughs, Kensington, still can't house some 100 families in permanent, decent, safe accommodation. Something strange is going on over there. We also have the launch of the inquiry this week, and I didn't really want to go on about that. I mean, there's been so much media coverage about the inquiry, but perhaps I need to.
This is the formal opening of the public inquiry into the fire at Grenfell Tower in June this year. On that dreadful occasion, exactly 3 months ago, at least 80 people died when the building was engulfed by flames in a tragedy unprecedented in modern times.
So, Moore-Bick's inquiry. I think that guy really knows how to talk much and say very little. That was some 45 minutes of talk, much which could have been read off the inquiry website. But what was said, now unfortunately nerds like me, we're forced to listen to every single word and try and analyse it.
I've had discussions with a number of people who seem to me to be likely to be able to bring to the inquiry expertise and perspectives which I do not myself possess. But to appoint as an assessor someone who had had direct involvement in the fire would risk undermining my impartiality in the eyes of others who are also deeply involved in the inquiry.
Now, Moore-Bick spent a lot of time explaining the difference between assessors and core participants, even went as far as using the law to explain why he had to curtail the involvement of core participants and why he felt it was important to have assessors that were impartial and which the suspects themselves had confidence in, to make sure that they didn't feel uncomfortable that he was going to be biased in some way. I think this kind of misses the point of an impartial inquiry that's looking for justice, but hey, that's me. Anyway, Lily Allen talks on this, which give props for that. I don't know much about her as a musician, but her politics on this one is spot on.
My main concern is the lack of the diversity within the inquiry. I've only ever felt like I've wanted to amplify the voices of those people whose voices would not ordinarily be heard.
The Inquiry Rules 2006 place certain duties upon me in relation to the designation of core participants and of lawyers as recognised legal representatives. We have received around 300 such applications. Rule 7 of the Inquiry Rules seeks to avoid that situation by imposing on the chairman a duty to direct that core participants whose interests in the outcome of the inquiry are similar and to rely on similar facts are to be represented by a single recognised legal representative.
Now, Justice Moore-Bick used the inquiry law to actually speak about core participants and how to curtail their involvement. And I think the whole idea of saying that you can have many participants bunched together under one representative is a serious cop-out.
Even in cases where there are different lawyers representing people with different interests, it may make sense for one of them to lead on matters in which those whom they represent have broadly similar interests.
Sadly, one of the other ways that Moore-Bick is using the Inquiry Act is to limit his responsibility to find people criminally guilty. And of course we know that it's not a police investigation, but there was quite a strong emphasis on this.
I should also remind everyone that Section 2 of the Inquiries Act 2005 prohibits me from ruling on or determining anyone's civil or criminal liability. However, the same section also expressly provides that I am not to be inhibited by the likelihood of liability being inferred from any findings or recommendations that I may make. I shall therefore not shrink from making any findings or recommendations that are justified by the evidence, simply because someone else may at a later date consider that they form the basis of civil or criminal liability.
This suggestion that he can infer, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, those who are guilty, and that would somehow be enough for us, isn't really.
If I'd been Cressida Dick in charge of the Metropolitan Police, I would have had officers round to Kensington and Chelsea Council and to the Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation on the morning after the Grenfell fire, and would have made some arrests before people's shredding machines got going.
We could not take active steps to start collecting evidence until I had received my terms of reference and the inquiry had been formally set up.
When Moore-Bick spoke about evidence gathering, that really annoyed me. He made it really clear that this was some kind of like cooperative procedure. And so he would ask, or that his team have already asked those who are responsible, those who are involved in the decisions, to choose which pieces of evidence to give to him for scrutiny.
The solicitor to the inquiry had written to the organisations most closely involved with the management of the tower and its most recent refurbishment, asking them to produce any documents in their possession relevant to matters under investigation.
They'd put it into some computer automated machine. They'd analyse the documents that had been selected and curated for us by the organisations involved. And once they've analysed it, they would decide whether it's relevant, how it's relevant, and place it on the website so we can read it. I mean, fantastic, that's great. You're asking the criminals, where did you put the evidence? Where did you put the smoking gun? Where did you bury the body? And we're expecting them to come forth with that evidence. We've got to understand that this inquiry is pretty much, it's more akin to a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that took place in South Africa. So you involve a lot of people who have interest in the issue. But the truth of the matter is, what you're doing is engaging in an exercise to kind of like take the energy out bit by bit, take the passion out bit by bit, take the fire out bit by bit. And at the end, you release a lovely report about lessons learned. But in the truth, nobody is found responsible. No one is found culpable. And I don't think that's something that we can hang around and wait for. I mean, the report's said to be released in Easter. That's April. I don't have any confidence in that process. But hey, if we listen to David Lammy, and this is where the doublespeak of the title comes in, David Lammy says that we have to have faith.
Mr. Lammy, do you have faith that the inquiry will uncover the truth?
Got to have faith. It's just beginning, and you know, there is no reason to doubt that Sir Martin Moore-Bick has integrity and is an exceptional lawyer. So we've got to have faith.
There are some very wealthy people, some very politically powerfully connected people who are involved in this massacre, and they will do anything and have done anything and everything to make sure that they protect their interests and they don't go to jail.
I think that the inquiry is very restricted in the people that are on there. There's not one person of colour on that inquiry, and I think that's shocking.
What does it say about the inquiry team that it is all white and there are no representatives of the community on it?
Well, there have been inquiries in the past, Scarman, Macpherson, where the team has been, well actually Macpherson included John Sentamu actually, who was black, but so it's not the colour of your skin.
So when Lammy says that, a politician, of course he's working on the side of the elite and not the Grenfell community as he likes to parade himself. But hey, what do I know? So let me close on the opening of the inquiry with a comment on the closing of the inquiry.
We share a common goal. We are all searching after the truth about the cause of the fire and the massive loss of life that it caused. And we owe it to those who died and to those whose homes have been destroyed to work together to achieve that goal. Thank you all very much for coming, I look forward to seeing many of you again at subsequent hearings.
But what did you notice about that speech? Because I don't know if you heard it, but I noticed that there was no mention of finding who's responsible. That's how he closed the opening of the inquiry. Okay, so what else went on this week? Well, for me, the biggest event of this week wasn't the inquiry opening, but it was actually the silent march. On the 14th of every month, family, friends, survivors, supporters, people from all over come over to Kensington outside the Methodist Church and walk in silence just to honour and respect and to keep the flame alive for the campaign. And I was blessed to be able to attend this week. It's a very humbling experience. God, I sound like a politician, don't I? Doublespeak, shame. But it is. When you're walking alongside people with physical impairments, children, family members who have lost their loved ones, you've really got to reflect on what's happening, that this is not some kind of fantasy, that this is real. What I would like to say though, is that it is really irritating to be walking and hear helicopters, police helicopters, tracking our every movement, and to see drones in the skies taking images and photos of all of us involved. That's not cool. I mean, there's also a story this week about someone who'd actually gone into the tower and actually stolen money from one of the flats. And of course the media's banging on about how immoral it is, which it clearly is, and how bad it is and how the police are failing in their duties to protect the site. But what I also see as theft are people like Conrad Black? There is another character who is supposed to have resigned, still receiving six-figure salaries from the public purse. That's theft. That's corporate thuggery. So it'd be nice to close with some positive news. I think there's an opera concert and an art concert in remembrance of Grenfell, and families and survivors have been invited, and I have no doubt more huge sums of money will be raised, which is nice. I still worry about organisations continuing to raise money but not actually get involved politically. If you're going to continue to raise money, perhaps it'll be good to put it into a Grenfell trust, which is run and managed by the Grenfell survivors, so they can actually decide how that money is used. I say that because on the march I met survivors, supporters, who, even though they're having their basic needs covered, some of the supporters who live in the nearby areas are struggling with things like rent. Yes, also this week I've been seeing some wonderful tributes. Shafira Grassroots with Dignity for the Living. There's the No Alarms and the Big Zoo spoken word tributes. These are fantastic works that are helping people to heal, helping people to be emboldened, to stay on track, giving us the energy that we need to stand the course. Kevin Efeleke-Haynes, wonderful batter drummer, giving free spiritual drumming sessions at the Acklam Village. Please, if you go, make a donation, because again, so many people are giving up their services for free, and they need to eat, they need to pay rent. So I want to close by mentioning the final article I've read about, which is one on the topic of reparations. Now, as a Pan-Africanist, I'm pretty sure you can understand that I'm very interested in that topic. And just as in the case for the Ma'afa, reparations isn't just about money. In this reparations claim for Grenfell, there are calls for a return to community assets. So Acklam Village is a perfect example of the kind of spaces that can be created, the kind of healing centres that can be returned back to the community. But still, libraries and other kinds of assets which councils closed down on this gentrification drive, which they call redevelopment, that needs to be reversed. So while the media went into a flow of activity to get a lot of stories placing the inquiry into context, the key moment for this week was once again the silent march. That's where you saw the power of community, the resilience, the beauty, the strength, the emotion, the heart of the Grenfell survivors movement. And I just don't want us to get distracted. Please, don't get distracted. We've got work to do. So I'm going to close and say once again, may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.